The Atlanta Hawks had such a great NBA season this year. Let's get into this. The Atlanta Hawks just got eliminated by the Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I know it may sting in the initial moment to a lot of Hawks fans and also the players that actually lost, but when you look at the Hawks season this year, I think they have a ton to be proud of. A lot of people didn't even expect the Hawks to be even anywhere near the NBA playoffs, and even if they did make it, they thought they would be at least a 7th or 8th seed, or at most a 7th or 8th seed, I should say. And the fact that the Hawks got all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and had a legitimate chance to win this series, by the way, I should mention. Now, when Trae Young actually got hurt in that series, that was a huge blow to them, obviously in the moment, but even when he came back in Game 6, it really just messed up the whole flow and gave the Bucks a lot of confidence, and at that point I feel like it was kind of over. But either way, before that Trae Young injury, they were completely in that series and had a very good chance to win it. But now let's look at each series. When they played the New York Knicks, a lot of people expected the Knicks to win that series, and the Hawks were definitely underdogs in that series. The Hawks didn't only win that series, they completely dismantled this New York Knicks team, which during the regular season, they were very impressive. Now in the playoffs, the Knicks were just playing poorly, and I think they would have lost to basically any team in the playoffs. But still, a lot of credit has to go to the Atlanta Hawks to how they were playing Julius Randle and RJ Barrett to force them to have such bad nights basically every single game they played. So that's great. Now moving on to the Sixers series, a lot of people expected, okay, they beat the Knicks pretty convincingly, but the Sixers, there's no way they would beat them. The Sixers were the number 1 seed. A lot of people thought this was finally the year they would get to the NBA Finals and maybe finally win a championship with this team with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Obviously it didn't work out. Ben Simmons had a terrible playoffs, but the Hawks also did a great job at preventing him from scoring. Embiid did his thing and went off, but I don't think anybody could really stop Embiid. And eventually they won that Sixers series. They just did a great job, and then that was moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks, where they definitely had a chance to win it, but unfortunately, for the Hawks at least, they didn't win that series and lost in 6 games. But they had such great playoff series and a lot to learn from going forward, and a lot to be confident about. Now, what did we learn from this Atlanta Hawks team from these playoffs and what we've seen from them? The first thing I think we've learned is Trae Young is completely legit. I think for a little bit now we realized Trae Young was definitely at the very least an all-star just due to how he was playing during the regular season, but the way he was able to play in these playoffs and all the way up to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the way he just looks so unbothered and unfazed by the playoffs, the bright lights of New York City, the bright lights of Philadelphia, then Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals, he wasn't fazed whatsoever at any point and didn't look scared whatsoever. So I think we could legitimately say this guy's a superstar, and we could say that pretty confidently. And the fact that he's so clutch in the playoffs and just clutch in general is a great trait to have, because there's tons of NBA superstars in this league. When it comes down to the NBA playoffs and getting later to the NBA playoffs, they kind of freeze up and don't play as well as they did during the regular season. And one of the best guys that really embodies that is a guy like Steph Curry. For whatever reason in the finals, the lights are a little too bright for him and he just doesn't play as well. In the last finals that he was in against the Raptors, he played very well, but besides that, really every single finals he struggled to some extent. But with Trae Young, that's a completely the opposite, and he does not shy away from the bright lights whatsoever. We also learned in these playoffs that the guys they put around Trae Young are just great players. I think Bogdanovich is going to be a foundational piece, and that was a great find for them. They got very lucky that he actually didn't go to the Bucks and went to them instead. Yeah, I think he's a great player and very underrated, and I think in the future people are going to realize actually how good this guy is. Kevin Huerter as well, he had a very good games in the playoffs as well. I think it showed that he wasn't scared in the playoffs either, which is a great trait to have. I think he's going to be a foundational piece for them as well. John Collins played extremely well for them as well. Clint Capella, Clint's a little bit older. He's not old, but he's older and he's farther in his trajectory than a lot of the other players on this Atlanta Hawks team. But he's a great player as well, and he was playing very well. And I think a guy like Clint Capella would be great for Trae Young, because as I mentioned in other videos, Trae Young has that ability to not realize what he's going to do until the last second in the pick and roll, and he can either jump and put that floater up or jump and throw up that lob in the same motion. So for the defense, whoever's defending him, it just makes it impossible for them to realize what he's going to do, and that's what makes him so effective when he gets to the basket. So having a guy like Clint Capella is perfect for him. Also, other guys that the Hawks were able to pick up during the offseason, like Danilo Gallinari, was a great pickup for them. They just had great guys around him, and they figured out that the formula for Trae Young is put shooters all around him, guys who can create for themselves at times, like Bogdanovich, Gallinari at times, and also also have that center like Clint Capella who you can run the pick and roll with and throw lobs to, just make it easier on you. And then for the defensive end, Clint Capella helps you out significantly because he's a great defender, of course. And whoever Trae Young's guarding, a lot of the times they would just blow right by him. And having a center like that in the paint like Clint Capella, who you know is going to have your back and block those shots, or at least contest those shots really well to make the offensive player miss those layups or dunks, just helps you out tremendously. Now, where do the Atlanta Hawks go from here? Of course, they should have a ton of confidence going into next season, but one thing that they should take into account is this season a ton of NBA superstars were actually hurt, and during these playoffs, it was a lot easier. When we've seen teams that make the Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, or whatever, that we wouldn't expect just due to the fact that so many superstars around the league were injured in the playoffs. So going into next season, I don't think it will be as easy to get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the Hawks, or maybe if they want to get to the NBA Finals. So that's something they have to take into account, but either way, they should have a ton of confidence. They were not even projected to make the playoffs this season, or if they were only projected to be the 7th or 8th seed, maybe 6th seed. And the fact that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and easily could have made it to the NBA Finals, and then at that point, who would have known? Maybe they could have won the championship, I don't know, is crazy good for them. And you would think as time goes on and next season and as they get more years together, their chemistry would just continuously get better, and hopefully that Hawks organization is able to get more better players around them, more shooters to add, maybe more defensive players to add. They just have a great core group of guys right now, and you wouldn't want to break that up. Also, we learned that the Hawks now have an actual NBA head coach. Nate McMillan took over halfway through the season, and he's done an amazing job with them. Their offense was already amazing because they had Trae Young, who was playing out of his mind, and all the players and all the shooters they have around him just makes him so lethal in the offensive end. But what changed him and what really Nate McMillan did for these guys is he brought that defensive intensity to them and made them, at the very least, a decent defensive team. And when you talk about a team like the Hawks that are so prolific on the offensive end, bringing them to at least an NBA average defense or even a little bit better, they were better than an average defense under Nate McMillan, just brings them to a whole nother level. And now you're really talking about championship contender potentially. But overall, even though it sucks for the Hawks that they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals and there's that initial sting of losing in the playoffs, the Hawks should have a ton to be excited about going into next season and just the future in general. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Atlanta Hawks have a very bright future ahead of them under Trae Young and all the other guys they have on their team? Or do you not agree and think this is a one-year wonder and the Hawks are going to go back down to what they were before the season? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.